It's full time.
Hello and welcome to Full Time, brought to you by AIA Vitality. My name is Shane Crawford and this is our very last Full Time for season 2020. It's a bit of a preview show into the grand final between the Mighty Cats taking on the Mighty Tigers. And this man we're about to talk to next, Ayrton Woolley. He has been up in the Queensland hub ever since everyone had to pack up and go. You've done an incredible job. We really appreciate it. And if anyone else was here, we would put our hands together and say, well done to you. But how are you? Thank you for doing what you've done, giving us all the latest breaking news in the football world, and you're coming home soon.
Yeah, thanks, Crawf. I've got to say, I'm a little bit sad it's coming to an end. Also, that our time together is coming to an end for a season. Also, a bit sad about your tips last week, but we don't want to go too far into that.
OK, we're going to go there, are we? I picked Port Adelaide and I picked the Brisbane Lions. And I also did say, if we want to really get into it, I also did say I think it's a bit of a flip of the coin. I'm not very confident this week. And I also said, going into the very first round of finals, if Geelong lose their first game and if Richmond lose their first game, I still think they can make a grand final, and I still think they can win a grand final. There you go, you drongo.
Didn't have to throw it out far, and I just got him in there straight up. Well.
How are you? You well? Are you well?
Yeah,
everything under control? Tom Hawkins, is he under control?
Yeah, big. I mean, a big story this week in what's otherwise been a drama-free week for the two clubs. Richmond very much flying under the radar. The Tomahawk saw he was absent from the track earlier in the week, so it raised a few eyebrows. You always wonder if it's a bit of a smokescreen, this talk of a sore throat for something more sinister. We'll hear from Tom Hawkins a little later when we have a look at the Cats. But, yeah, a bit happening on the Gold Coast still, Crawford, even so late in the year. Yeah,
and when we look at the Tigers too, they've had a bumpy road this year, but it just shows you they're a fantastic club, being able to sort of not only keep themselves going, but they've galvanised themselves. They've come together. They keep producing the Herculean efforts that they have, especially against Port Adelaide last week, to go over there and to beat Port Adelaide, who I thought were very good. And it was always going to be tough with, 30,000 screaming Port Adelaide supporters. I just think that was just a wonderful, wonderful victory. So who knows what confidence that's going to give them going into the grand final.
Yeah, certainly was a great performance from Richmond, bouncing back after the loss to Brisbane in their qualifying final, of course. The grand final, we just saw a night grand final this year. We heard from Gillon McLachlan today here in Queensland, actually, who said it might be a bit of a test case, perhaps a night grand final in the future. Just quickly, Crawford, do you think we should stick with the night grand final as we look at Geelong training last night, or do you want to reserve your judgment until after this one?
Well, we haven't seen a night grand final yet, but it'll be a wonderful spectacle. Two awesome sides, and the thing I love about both sides, they're so well coached. They've got superstars. You've got Dangerfield, you've got Dustin Martin, you've got wonderful captains, Trent Cotchin, Woolley go up against Joel Selwood. You've got key forwards, Tom Lynch, Tom Hawkins at the other end, Jack Revolt. You've got wonderful running half-backs, Woolley, Tom Stewart. It is just going to be a wonderful grand final. Geelong play a style where they work their way through. They really think through it, but they keep the ball moving. And Richmond, well, Richmond would have learnt a great deal from what Brisbane did last week, where Brisbane were a bit scared to pull the trigger and get moving. They played safe. Only time all year they've played safe, and it was in the most important match to get themselves into a grand final. So I expect Richmond, even if Geelong are zoning space, especially when they go to switch, they'll just go and they'll charge towards those Geelong players. So it's going to be on. It's going to be a wonderful spectacle. And it might be wet weather as well. So I understand there might be a bit of rain coming.
Yeah, some thunderstorms forecast for Saturday from the late morning, I'm told. So a 40% chance was the latest word from the weather team today. Some thunderstorms too for Sunday, which might come forward as well. So certainly one to watch. The Tigers today believe that might work to their advantage because they play that, I guess, that chaos-style football. But just on the Cats, we saw the visit of them training in Southport last night, so they've been holding their main sessions at night in the last few weeks, I guess because of the conditions here in Queensland. Tom Hawkins did train for most of it. He didn't take part in the match simulation. This was him today speaking about that little health scare earlier in the week.
I knew that what I had was under control and I'd be fine. So yeah, I'm not trying to bluff you here at all. I'm feeling 100%. So I'm good to go.
He's good to go. The Tomahawk, good Finley boy. He'll be up and about. What a wonderful year he's had. And it's great that they're training at night. It just makes sense. You're playing finals at night. The grand finals played at night. Why are you not actually training at night? That just makes perfect sense. I reckon Chris Scott, he's done a wonderful job all year. Even when coronavirus hit, what he did, he said, you know what, I'll take a pay cut. I want to keep some of my staff. They're just so well drilled, the Geelong Football Club. They're an awesome football club on and off the field, and just all credit to them. A wonderful effort. And then the Tigers too, a massive pat on the back. It's very hard to win a grand final and then back up, be highly competitive, have players that not head up to the hub with you, then you bring them back into the side, try to get that consistency. I just think both sides are already the winners, regardless of whatever happens on the weekend. I just think they both deserve a Premiership Cup, making a grand final in such a trying year.
Yeah, first all Victorian grand final for almost a decade, Crawford. It's hard to argue that these two teams aren't just about the best teams. I know Port Adelaide and Brisbane finished above them on the ladder, but these Richmond, as we know, as the past few years, as you mentioned, but also Geelong, their best footy this year, as they've showed, has been incredible. So I can't wait for this one. Should be a cracking contest. We also had Richmond training today, though, for their part, their main session earlier in the day, so not opting for the night session. They'll have a run on the Gabba tomorrow afternoon, heading up to Brisbane tomorrow. So a slightly different preparation for them because they haven't played as much in Brisbane. They've been based more here on the Gold Coast, played more of their games at Metricon Stadium. This was assistant coach Justin Lepich earlier today.
Guess we've decided to treat it more like an away game for us this week. We have to Brisbane on Friday night, settle in there and then treat it more in that fashion. So it's a bizarre year. It's a different grand final. All things are different, but I think the teams have been able to adjust the best, have generally performed well, and I think us and Geelong are probably those two teams.
Last time they met, there's a score 4-7-31 to the Tigers, 7-15-57. You can't read a great deal into that. I think you're going with a very settled lineup. You're going with your very best lineup. Who knows what's going to happen if you can get yourself a bit of scoreboard pressure early. Will Dangerfield play in the middle? Will he play a lot of time in the forward line? What about Dustin Martin? What if he kicks a few goals early? Will they leave him in the forward line? It's just going to be a fascinating match. Two wonderful sides. I don't think you can really focus on the past history too much. And we do know Geelong and Chris Scott does have the secret to playing at the Gabba. Obviously, he's been a premiership hero playing for the Lions, but he's got the secret when you get out there and play with the Cats undefeated there this year. So they're going to have a lot of confidence going into this match, knowing that they've got the secret formula. And the Tigers, well, even when they had the choice between the Gabba or go and play at Metricon, the Gold Coast Stadium, they chose the Gold Coast Stadium. So you just wonder if there's a little bit of doubt there playing at the Gabba. Who knows? But their record in Queensland's impeccable. So this is just going to be edge of the seat material. It really is. Cannot wait. And the grand final, I think it's going to be what we all want from 2020. Just the match to go virtually to the final siren, and no one really knowing which way the game's going to go.
Just on that last game, Crawford, Richmond really suffocated Geelong in that game. They only scored one goal to three-quarter time in that game, the Cats. And I know, as you mentioned then, they're different lineups and they're probably going a bit better now than they were then, Geelong. But do you think they've got the tools to get through that Richmond press and the Richmond pressure on the biggest stage?
Yeah, absolutely. The way they moved the footy, and you saw it against the Brisbane Lions, they just kept the ball moving. As soon as they gather possession, they just really separate and they open up and they just keep the ball travelling, which is very, very hard to stop, especially at the Gabba. I always thought the Gabba suited the Geelong style really well. And Richmond, well, we know they've got the courage to run, and even if there are players waiting for them, they'll go and they'll run in numbers and they'll get that frantic ball going, even though there's a real sort of system to the way they do it. I can guarantee you they'll pull the trigger and they'll go with a real fast-flowing game style, which is what you want against Geelong, because you want to move the defence. I know there's some older players down there. They like the movement to be nice and slow when they're coming up against opposition sides. So Richmond will want to move. They'll want their smalls to really run, really be used when they're open and in space. So look for that early. Look for the shuffling defence of Geelong to be really on the go early and have to be really accountable man on man. And that's going to be the key if Richmond are to win the match.
Just in regards to personnel, Joel Selwood, Gary Ablett didn't play that last match in round 17. Paddy Dangerfield played in the midfield. He said earlier this week he does expect to play forward again. And Justin Levitt today admitted that will add a different dynamic for what the Richmond defence has to handle.
Their forward line is probably the part of their ground that's vastly different to last time we played. The types of players they're playing in, far more probably dynamic and dangerous, no disrespect to the others that aren't. So yeah, they've definitely got more potency in that part of the ground, but we like to think our defence is a system as much as an individual match-up type thing. So it's a challenge for us, but I think one we're ready for. So.
Justin Lepich there. Well, Crawford, you played against the Geelong side of, I guess, a decade ago, that great side that won 3 premierships. This Richmond team has the chance to win 3 flags now. How do we compare them? Can the Tigers overtake them, do you reckon?
I think it's always a bit harsh, even when you compare player against player, teams against teams. I think we should just admire how wonderful, and like it really is a massive effort to back up each year to not only get yourself into the finals, get yourself into a grand final, win a grand final. It is massive. And I always think back to my old team. After I left, yes, Ayrton, after I left, they won 3 in a row without me and couldn't believe it. But I just sit there in awe, just knowing the work that needs to go in. So I think it's very hard to compare. I just think we should just admire how wonderful they are. And, you know, they could be winning, what, their 3rd in 4 years in a couple of days, which is pretty special.
Certainly would be. Another man who is very special and could go almost to another stratosphere after this game is Dustin Martin. He's won 2 Norm Smith medals. Of course, a few guys have done that in the past. We can see here Gary Ayres, Andrew McLeod and your old mate Luke Hodge there. Some big names there, aren't there, Crawford? But Dusty, he's very much a part of that group. He stacks up pretty well.
Oh, yeah, he's a gun. Just give him the ball and watch what he does. The way that he uses it, he kicks goals, you know, through the middle. He somehow finds himself into space, delivering an inside 50. Yeah, he's a wonderful player. And the thing about the Norm Smith medal, I had a good chat to Jimmy Bartell, Geelong champion, the other day, and he brought up a very good point because we're all trying to work out who's going to win the Norm Smith medal, and it's very, very hard. Obviously, you think of Dangerfield and you think of Dustin Martin, but halfbacks have got very good records at winning this. You look at Johannisen from the Bulldogs, Luke Hodge. Woolley was runner-up last year. They've got good records at polling a lot of votes. So if you're looking for a bit of a roughie, you know, you've got Baker who plays down there, Woolley. You've also got Stewart from Geelong. So they might be left field sort of suggestions to win the Norm Smith. And they do have a pretty good polling history, the halfbacks, because they've got to create, they've got to run, they've got to use the ball, they've got to get the ball. So there's a couple of players there to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, might go and have a look at the odds tonight, Crawford, after that little bit of advice.
Well, mate, you've been potting my tipping, so why would you back me in with a Norm Smith?
Well, I don't know who you're backing yet for the game, so we'll see. Oh. We'll see your tip is here in a sec. Well, actually, it is time for the tips, Crawford. So, look, I will listen. I'm not sure I'll take it on board.
Oh,
no,
yes.
What have you got?
I think it's a draw. I think it's going to be a drawn grand final, very much like 2010. No, I think it's going to be extremely close. I'm not confident. I was confident in the first couple of rounds of the finals, but definitely not confident predicting the winner. The more I've looked at it, I just think Richmond, if they run and if they play with the courage that they can, which is running in straight lines and running at opposition players whilst they're waiting and just using their numbers to get the ball through, I think that'll be the key for them to win. And I think they can win the premiership for 2020. As I said, confidence is not high. So if they are going to win, you've got to go with the Norm Smith medalist from the Tigers. Normally it sort of leans that way. Yes, a Dustin Martin, but I'm happy to go a bit left field and pick even Shane Edwards, if he pushes back and helps the defence a fair bit to get a lot of the footy. He's fresh. He's a wonderful player. Or at huge odds, little Baker down in the back line. He'll play on someone, but he'll really link up. He could be one who gets plenty of the footy and has a bit of an impact. So I'm leaning towards the Tigers to win and one of the Tigers to win the Norm Smith medal.
Geez, Damien Hardwick won't be happy to hear that, the kiss of death there. But no, I am going... Sorry, I can't help myself. It's the last show, Bob. It's the last show. I can't let you off the hook. I am actually, for what it's worth, going with Richmond myself. So,
oh no!
So we're on for once we're on the same page, mate. We're on the same page.
Right. And who's your Norm Smith medalist?
Well, I wasn't given any notice here, but if it's not Dustin Martin, I'm going to go with slightly left field here. I'm going to say a bloke by the name of Shea Bolton. I've been very impressed with this year. have 20-odd touches, maybe kick 2, and might just get himself normie.
Yeah, he kicks goals like no one else, and I think pretty much 99% of the footballers can't do the things he can do in such a tight little area, so not a bad little choice there. We need a bit more love for the Cats, though. I think the Cats are definitely in this match. Look for Tomahaw to maybe kick the first goal for the Cats. Tom Lynch maybe kick the goal, first goal for the Tigers, and maybe have a look at the 3 Toms. Tom Lynch, Tom Stewart, Tom Hawkins to be on fire. Anyway, any more Toms in the game?
Well, now it's time for our final guest of the year, thanks to AIA Vitality. And he's a man who's certainly done some of his best work around this time of year. Wayne Swass joining us from Melbourne. Good to see you, Swatter. How are you going?
Not too bad, Ayrton and Crawford. Thanks for having me on the program.
Well, Swatter, so much, I guess, happening back in Victoria, and particularly what it means for the mental health space. From your perspective, how difficult has this time been, but also how important is it to reach out to those around you?
Yeah, look, I think it's been an extraordinary 6 months for people living in Melbourne in particular, Ayrton. And probably the thing that I've noticed is my own podcast, and I've interviewed a number of clinical psychologists and professors, so people that work in the mental health space and have years and decades of extensive experience and expertise, and even people that have the skill set in order to be able to maintain good mental health and emotional well-being have all said that they're up and down. It's been really challenging. And I think the best way to describe it has been, it felt like we've been running a marathon without a finish line every week. And, you know, I've worked in this space for a long time, and I've got some real concerns, and this is not to overplay it, but got some real concerns that hopefully once we get, and we're close, once we allow the city and the state to really start to open up again, that doesn't mean these issues have been resolved. So there'll be a lot of work in the months and years ahead that we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to look after people who are overwhelmed, under stress, or living with mental health conditions.
Hey, Swatter, you're an incredible footballer, premiership hero, highly skilled, very courageous, but I think the work you're doing at the moment is probably the most courageous thing you've ever done. So it's wonderful that you've got a voice, but also you can be a face of, you know, something that people can really link to and work towards. And it's just so important right now, more than ever, that they can have someone they can connect with and hopefully get on the right track and come out of this in the right direction.
Yeah, look, I appreciate it, Crawford. You know, footy was a big part of my life, but this is what I'm really passionate about, the work that I now do. You know the crew at AIA, Australia and New Zealand, and AIA Vitality, Crawford, as you probably know, have come on as a partner of our podcast. And it's really important that we get to work with organisations that share similar passion and belief with regards to, we actually want to help people develop the skill set and the confidence to look after their well-being, as opposed to what tends to happen with a lot of people, and this is not a criticism, but people wait until they become unwell before they start to think about what can they do. And the system is set up waiting for people to present when they're unwell. And we really want to get upstream and educate people and give them the opportunity to develop in the skills and the tools and the confidence which allows people to proactively manage their well-being. If we can deliver on that, then we will have a healthier population who are healthier both physically, mentally and emotionally. They are healthier in their life. They're able to do all the things they want to do, and they live longer, healthier lives. That's our aim. And
so if I want to tune in right now to your podcast, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? All you need to do, Crawford, is jump onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify or where people get their podcasts from. Type in Pucker Up, P-U-K-A-U-P. We're 3 episodes in. We released the 3rd episode today, which is all about sleep. Every episode is a strategy or a technique or a tool that people can listen and learn about, and hopefully from that they can start to develop that tool and put it in their toolbox. It's one of the things that I've learnt, Crawford, from a personal perspective and my own experience is I actually have a toolbox with a number of strategies and techniques that I've used through the last 6 months as well as the last 15 years. So when times are challenging and when there's stress, I've got a toolbox which allows me to deal with something that is stressful and then move back to being in a really healthy and happy position.
So what I wanted to ask you from a footy perspective, but just on your toolbox there, and I know mental health can be different for everyone, but what are some of the easier steps that people can take to, I guess, focus on being well and staying in that space?
Such a great question, Ayrton, because sometimes people think that well-being is something that's intangible, but the simple things that I use daily is exercise, diet, and that just doesn't include the food and the fluid that I consume. What am I consuming by way of content? Social media, traditional media, exercising all the time. Sleep is the number one priority for me. Being connected and in constant communication with my support network. And when necessary, I'll pick up the phone and I speak to my GP. I've had the same GP for 35 years. He was the GP at North Melbourne. I talk to him all the time. I talk to my support network. And they're things that I think, Ayrton, are available to everyone. And they don't necessarily have to cost money. They're easily to do and they're easy to put into our toolbox.
Swat, some great advice there, and that's just within a minute of you having a quick chat, so I can imagine tuning into the podcast, you're going to get a great deal out of it. Now, what about North Melbourne? Obviously a lot of changes. You were an absolute champion at that football club for a long time. I'm sure you got a lot of love for that football club. So what about the changes happening there? Obviously Reece Shaw under enormous pressure has started to step away. They're rejuvenating the list. How are you feeling about your old club?
Oh, look, it's a difficult situation, Crawford. I mean, you've been in this position with the Hawks over the journey, and you never like to see your football club struggling. And I think that they're probably paying a price now because of their commitment over, probably 20-odd years of not wanting to bottom out. This appetite to continue to always try and finish as high as we could possibly finish, whether that was in the 8 or just outside the 8. We've rarely finished down the bottom, if ever, in the last 20 years. So I think that that's part of the challenge. I've got no issues with the club going back to the bare bones, doing everything they can to rebuild and re-establish the football club. That will take time. I guess my overriding feeling is about the health and well-being of Reece. And, I mean, this is a really difficult, challenging situation. I don't know the extent of what he's dealing with. I know enough to know that this is serious. Whether or not he comes back in some capacity, that would be great, but it's not my priority. And I've got no connection with Reece. I think the focus has to be and should be and hopefully is on making sure that Reece gets the time and the support and the professional support that he needs in order to get himself back to a position where he feels healthy and happy again. And if that's not in the role of a senior coach, then so be it. But if there's another role, great. But if he doesn't return to the game of football, then that's fine as well.
Schwatter, just on that, Alistair Clarkson, I guess, put it on the table last week in light of Reece stepping away. And even today, Reece said that he won't be coming back as senior coach. He wants to be involved in footy, but not at the moment. He needs to focus on himself. How much of an issue do we have for senior coaches in terms of the pressure that they are under and what they're facing, I guess, in this new world where there's so much focus on them?
Yeah, I try again. That's a really pertinent question, Ayrton, because we have so much focus and support being wrapped around the playing body, and it needs to be, because it's a tough, demanding job that our players have to fulfil and perform on a weekly basis and across the season. But there's not as much. I don't believe there's as much investment. There's as much support being provided to our coaches. And earlier this week, I actually tried to put myself into Reece's position using my own experiences. I played football where I had 17 other teammates helping me when I was struggling on the football field and in life. Yet Reece was the figurehead of a football club. So if he's got a serious mental health condition or he's got serious emotional challenges that he's dealing with, I can't imagine how difficult the job would have been at various stages this year to cope with the pressures and demands of being an AFL coach, but at the same time trying to manage significant emotional challenges. And I just can't imagine how difficult that would have been. So hopefully we learn that this is a reminder that coaches aren't immune. AFL players can be exposed to these conditions, so can coaches, so can administrators, and so can people in the broader community. No one is immune from these issues. When it happens, we need to do everything we can to support them.
Hey, Wayne, we really appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out Pucker Up on the podcast. Go to the website. We really appreciate you coming on the show. Just before we finish up, who's going to win the premiership and why?
Well, this is based on no intellectual thought, Crawf. I have far too many lunatic Richmond supporters in my network. I'm sick of them. I'm done with them. I cannot go another year listening to these not imbeciles, these passionate Richmond supporters giving me what for. One of my daughters barracks for Geelong, so I hope that the Cats win it for Gary Ablett. They give him a beautiful send-off. Paddy Dangerfield gets a premiership, and then I don't have to listen to the Richmond peanuts in my network that will just give me crap for the next 12 months.
That sounds like a pretty good reason to me. Hey, thanks, you've been a star. Ayrton, Woolley, you've been a star all year, coming to us from the hub in Queensland. I can't believe you packed your bags, you took off for a month, and you've been there for almost 100 days. You've been incredible. You've been watching full time. We'll see you again next year, and all the very best.